War. Huh. What is it good for? Well, traditionally box office returns. However, while triumphs of cinematic warfare like Saving Private Ryan or Black Hawk Down have stormed their way to critical and financial success, there are other deserving films that were shot down during the first wave. Prepare for me stretching even more military metaphors because we're talking about the 10 greatest war films to flop at the box office. Terrance Malik isn't known for being a director of crowd-pleasing popcorn flicks. The art house filmmaker is known for movies that explore the dark side of human nature and our place in the universe. So his adaptation of James Jones's anti-war novel, The Thin Red Line, was never destined to break records. However, the World War II film happened to open only a few months after the Steven Spielberg magnum opus, Saving Private Ryan. The action-light Malik film was unfavorably compared to the very loud Spielberg film. Despite its star-studded cast, the film only grossed $98 million against its reported budget of $52 million. Still a slight profit, but much lower than the studio expected. Still, The Thin Red Line is remembered today as one of the greatest anti-war films ever made. Let's stick with World War II for the next entry. Hey, if it's good enough for every mid-2000s first-person shooter, then it's good enough for ScreenRant. While The Thin Red Line focused on the Pacific theater, the 1993 war film Stalingrad looks at one of the war's most pivotal battles. The film is unique amongst World War II films in that it focuses on the German soldiers, telling the story of a group of men attempting to desert the Nazi forces during the invasion of the Russian city Stalingrad. The film cost about $10.7 million to make. However, it looks like it barely made that back at the box office. Still, Stalingrad is a stark depiction of the horrors of war and those caught on all sides of it. Okay, these movies are pretty heavy so far, so how about we look at something a little more adventurous? You can never go wrong when you have Antonio around. Well, I guess the very existence of this list means you can sometimes go wrong, but it's certainly never his fault. He's just too perfect. Anyway, whether Antonio Banderas is swinging a sword as Zorro or getting into an assassin competition with Sly Stallone, by 1999 he was box office gold. So the idea of making an $150 million Viking epic with him in the lead seemed like a safe bet. It also helps that it's based on a book by Jurassic Park author Michael Crichton. Plus, it also features the directing talents of the man who gave us Predator and Die Hard back to back. How could this movie not win? Spoiler alert, it didn't. The tale of a Baghdadi poet exiled from court, Banderas' lead character finds himself taking up a dangerous quest with a group of swarthy Vikings. The movie is now remembered as one of the biggest box office flops of all time. Remember that $150 million budget? Well, The 13th Warrior earned only about $61 million during its initial run. Critics were savage in their reviews, but time has turned in the film's favor. It helps that critics were wrong because this movie goes hard. Banderas jumps over a horse with another horse. 10 out of 10. This one is a little surprising given how ingrained into the culture this film has become. But I guess it is hard to forget the image of a shaved head Demi Moore telling a man to perform a gratuitous act of intimacy on her non-existent anatomy.
Suck my...
The film tells the fictional story of the first woman to join the infamous Navy SEALs, a storied and deadly military unit. G.I. Jane was made on a budget of $50 million and probably costing double that when you include the huge marketing push. Unfortunately, the movie only grossed $48 million during its theatrical run. The planned sequel was even shelved due to this poor performance. Still, G.I. Jane is an engrossing, if very 90s movie that features a great performance from Demi Moore. Still, I can hear you asking, do you have anything with more trebuchets? Viewer, I hope one day you find something to love as much as Ridley Scott loves making super long historical epics. Who else is pumped for Napoleon, by the way? Well, the English director has a long history of making sword and sandals tales of kings and warriors. Sometimes this is awards and box office dynamite, like the Russell Crowe starring classic Gladiator. Other times they fizzle out, like the confusingly cast Exodus Gods and Kings. I know when I think of Egyptians, I think of John Turturro. One such flop is Scott's Crusader epic Kingdom of Heaven. The film tells the story of Orlando Bloom learning he's a Nepo baby and inheriting his father's lands in medieval Jerusalem. He ends up embroiled in the actual history of Saladin's war with the Christian nobility in the contested Holy Land. The movie cost about $130 million to make and even more to market, and yet only took in $218 million during its run. Still, the movie is looked on more fondly now, especially with the later release of the far superior director's cut, proving once again that when it comes to Ridley Scott, longer is always better. Now from profits to profits. That joke works way better when it's written. War Dogs has all the makings of a cult hit, the biggest of which is first failing horribly at the box office. The semi-true story of a pair of arms dealers, this black comedy is directed by Todd, We Live in a Society, Phillips. With a similar tone to the Nick Cage classic Lord of War, this movie differs from that one in that this movie tanked with both audiences and critics at the time. Costing about $50 million to make, the movie only grossed about $86.2 million overall. Still, this movie is a biting satire with some great darkly comedic moments. Phillips also scored the comeback of the century when his next film, Joker, earned over $1 billion at the box office. I guess he's the one who gets the last laugh. There are only a few things humanity will continue to make movies about far into our distant future. One of those things is World War II. Overall, it was a pretty pivotal time in human history, and it certainly is filled with endless tales of drama. One of those tales is of the brave Navajo code talkers. Windtalkers is the bloody and violent tale of one such code talker. Starring Nicolas Cage and Adam Beach, Windtalkers is the first war film directed by Hong Kong actioneer John Woo. It was an expensive movie for Studio MGM, costing them $115 million. They only grossed $77 million, however, making this a certified bomb. Still though, it's an exciting action film that focuses on an all too ignored aspect of the war. Plus, you get the style and over-the-top mayhem we have all come to expect from the man who gave us Hard Boiled and Face Off. For the exact opposite of the last film on our list, look no further than Hotel Rwanda, the true story of a hotel manager who risks his life to protect those caught up in the infamous genocide. Don Cheadle received a huge amount of praise and acclaim for his performance as real-life activist Paul Rusesabagina, even earning him an Oscar nomination. However, Oscar buzz rarely translates into box office success. The harrowing tale of hope and survival cost about $17.5 million to make, not a lot in perspective. However, the movie barely earned that back, ending its run at a meager $33.9 million. Still, the movie is remembered now as both a defining role for Cheadle and a proper tribute to the couple that saved so many lives during one of the darkest moments in human history. After the end of World War II, the true scale of the Nazis' crimes were uncovered. While the Nuremberg trials saw many of them facing due justice, many more managed to escape. One such monster was war criminal Adolf Eichmann. Operation Finale tells the story of how Israeli Mossad agents captured Eichmann, who had started a new life in Argentina. Starring Oscar Isaac and Ben Kingsley, this tense espionage thriller is a tale of revenge, justice, and confronting evil. Costing $20 million to make, the true story only earned about $17 million at the box office. Come on, audiences, this one is great. What else did you have to see in 2018 at the theaters anyway? Oh, okay, fair enough. And we end at number 1 with quite possibly the biggest war film to ever feature the least actual war. Jarhead is based on the memoirs of former US Marine Anthony Swafford and tells the story of his deployment during Operation Desert Storm. After being trained with a singular intensity that only the US Marine Corps can cultivate, we follow Anthony's descent into frustration and anger at the inaction of actual warfare. Encapsulating the hurry up and wait mentality at the time, Jarhead ends up being about the anxiety of sitting around in a desert waiting for something or anything to happen. Naturally, a movie like that is hard to market, and ads at the time portrayed Jarhead as a spiritual successor to Black Hawk Down. Naturally, audiences felt bored and tricked by the movie itself, and it only ended up earning $97.1 million against a budget of $72 million. Still, the movie is now much more appreciated as a look into the realities of modern deployment and the frustrations of average soldiers.